The first time I found the blonde hair, I told myself it meant nothing. It was a Tuesday morning, and I was standing in the bathroom of the suburban home my husband Daniel and I had shared for almost 9 years. Sunlight was coming through the small frosted window above the bathtub. The shower was still warm, and I was reaching for my towel when I noticed something stuck near the drain. A long strand of blonde hair. I picked it up between my fingers and stared at it. My hair was dark brown. Daniel's hair was short and black. The blonde strand didn't belong to either of us. I dropped it into the trash and moved on with my morning. At least, that's what I tried to do. By that evening, I had almost convinced myself it had been nothing. Maybe a friend had left it behind. Maybe it had come from a hotel towel. Maybe it had somehow gotten into the house from outside. There were 100 explanations, and I wanted to believe every one of them. Daniel came home around 7 that night. He walked through the front door, dropped his keys into the little wooden bowl beside the entryway, kissed my cheek, and smiled. "Hey, honey." "Hey. How was your day?" "Pretty normal. Yours?" "Busy." He loosened his tie and headed toward the kitchen. Everything about him looked normal. His voice was normal. His smile was normal. His routine was normal. And somehow that made me feel worse. I watched him pour himself a glass of water. "Long day?" I asked. "You have no idea." He laughed. I smiled back. I almost told him about the hair. Almost. But something stopped me. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe some part of me already knew that asking him directly would only give him a chance to create a story. So I said nothing. 3 days later, I found another blonde hair. This one was longer. It was tangled around the edge of the shower drain. I stood there staring at it for nearly a minute. This time I didn't throw it away. I wrapped it in a tissue and put it in a small envelope. I didn't know why I did that. I just knew I wasn't ready to pretend anymore. That evening, I watched Daniel more carefully than I ever had before. He came home late. Again. "Traffic?" I asked. "Yeah, traffic was terrible." "Where were you?" "Downtown." "I thought you had a meeting near the office." He paused. "I did." Just 2 seconds, but I noticed. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Fine." I smiled. "Just curious." He kissed my forehead and went upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen. That was the first night I realized I wasn't simply suspicious anymore. I was investigating. I started noticing little things I had ignored for months. Daniel had become protective of his phone. He never left it on the kitchen counter anymore. If a message came in while we were sitting together, he would glance at the screen and put the phone face down. If I walked into the room while he was texting, he'd lock it. He started taking longer showers. He started buying new cologne, and on the days when I told him I would be out of the house for several hours, he suddenly seemed unusually interested in my schedule. "What time are you leaving tomorrow?" he asked one morning. "Around noon." "And when will you be back?" "I don't know. Why?" He shrugged. "Just wondering." I looked at him and smiled. "Okay." But inside, something had already changed. I began writing things down. Not because I wanted to become obsessed, but because I didn't trust my own memory anymore. I wrote down when he came home late. I wrote down the excuses he gave me. I wrote down the days I found another blonde hair. I didn't hack his phone. I didn't break into his accounts. I didn't follow him around town. I simply paid attention. And then, one Friday, I came home early. I had told Daniel that morning that I was going to spend the afternoon with my sister. I left the house around noon. My appointment ended much earlier than expected, so I drove home around 2. As I turned onto our street, I saw Daniel's car parked in the driveway. My stomach tightened. He had told me he would be at work until 6. I slowed down. Then I saw another car parked beside his. A silver sedan. I didn't recognize it. I parked across the street and watched. A few minutes later, the front door opened. Daniel stepped outside. Behind him came a woman, long blonde hair, tall. She was laughing as she walked beside him. I knew her face. I'd seen her once at a company event. Claire, Daniel's coworker. My heart sank. I didn't get out of the car. I didn't confront them. I simply sat there and watched them go back inside. I had spent almost a week wondering if I was imagining things. Now I knew. My husband was bringing another woman into our home while I was away. I sat there for almost an hour staring at the house. I expected myself to scream. Instead, I felt strangely calm. When Daniel finally came outside alone, I waited another 20 minutes before driving home. When I walked through the front door, everything looked perfect. The living room was clean. The kitchen was spotless. Nothing seemed out of place. Then I walked upstairs. I entered the bathroom, and there it was again. Another blonde hair on the shower floor. I picked it up. This time I didn't feel confused. I felt betrayed. I looked at the shampoo bottle sitting beside the sink. It was the same bottle I had bought a few weeks earlier. A simple bottle of women's shampoo, the kind of thing no one thinks twice about. And suddenly, I realized something. Claire had been using my bathroom. She had probably used my shower. She had probably used my shampoo. I stood there looking at the bottle, and an ugly thought entered my mind. If Daniel thought he could use my home as a secret meeting place, maybe he needed to understand that his secret had consequences. I won't pretend that what I thought about doing next was noble. It wasn't. I was angry. I was hurt. I wanted him to feel even a fraction of what I felt. But I also knew I couldn't do anything that could seriously injure another person. So I didn't use any real chemical mixture, and I wasn't going to give anyone instructions that could cause harm. Instead, in the world of my story, I prepared a completely fictional cosmetic formula that looked like an ordinary shampoo but had one impossible property. After repeated use, it caused hair to disappear without causing pain, burns, or permanent physical damage. It was the kind of strange, unrealistic revenge device you might see in a movie. I placed it in the bathroom and waited. I didn't tell Daniel, I didn't tell Claire, I didn't tell anyone. I simply waited. The next week, Daniel asked me an innocent-sounding question. "Are you going to your sister's Saturday?" I looked up from my coffee. "Why?" "You said she wanted to see you." "She does." "So you're going?" "Probably." He nodded. "Okay." I smiled. "Why are you asking?" "No reason." But I knew exactly why. Saturday morning, I left the house. I drove to my sister's and stayed there for a couple of hours. I didn't spy on Daniel. I didn't need to. When I returned home later that afternoon, I saw his car in the driveway. I walked inside. The house was quiet. I went upstairs. The bathroom door was slightly open. I stood outside for a moment. Then I looked at the shampoo bottle. It was no longer where I had left it. I knew someone had used it. A week later, Claire showed up at Daniel's workplace wearing a baseball cap. Another week passed. Then I saw a photograph online from a company event. Claire was wearing a hat again. I stared at the picture. Something had clearly happened, but I still didn't know how much. Then Daniel came home one night looking worried. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing." "You don't look fine." He sat down on the couch. "Claire has been having some kind of problem." I kept my expression neutral. "What kind of problem?" He rubbed his forehead. "Her hair." I almost laughed. Instead, I asked, "What about it?" "It's falling out." He looked genuinely confused. "She says it's happening really fast." I took a sip of water. "That's strange." "Yeah." He stared at the floor. "She thinks it might be some kind of reaction to a product." I looked at him. "A product?" "Some shampoo or something." I nodded slowly. "Maybe she should see a doctor." "She did." He sighed. "They can't figure out what's causing it." I said nothing. Over the next several days, Claire's hair loss became more severe. Daniel was increasingly distracted. He spent more time texting, more time on phone calls, more time trying to reassure her. I watched all of it quietly. Then one evening, Daniel came home and looked completely exhausted. He dropped onto the couch. "She's almost lost all of it." I sat across from him. "Claire?" He looked at me. For the first time, he seemed to realize what he had said. His face changed. "I mean, someone I know." I stared at him. "Claire?" He didn't answer. The room went silent. "You've known all along, haven't you?" He finally asked. I didn't respond. "How long?" "Long enough." He looked terrified. What did you do? I leaned back in my chair. What makes you think I did anything? Because you're looking at me like that. I smiled sadly. Daniel, I found the first blonde hair almost 3 weeks ago. His eyes widened. Then I found another. Then I saw you bring Claire into our house. He stood up. You saw us? Yes. He looked away. I can explain. I'm sure you can. He walked toward me. It wasn't supposed to happen. But it did. I was confused. For 5 months? He froze. I knew he understood that I knew more than he expected. How did you find out? He whispered. The same way I found out everything else. I paid attention. He sat down again. Claire thinks she was poisoned. Was she? He asked. No. Then what happened? I looked him directly in the eyes. Maybe you should ask yourself why she was using products in my bathroom in the first place. He stared at me. What are you saying? I took a slow breath. I'm saying that you brought another woman into our home. You lied to me. You lied to her. And now you're sitting here wondering how the consequences found you. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Did you do something to her? I stayed silent for a few seconds. Then I said, I wanted to. He looked terrified. But I didn't do anything that would permanently hurt her. He lowered his head. I was angry. I know. I felt betrayed. I know. I wanted you to understand what it feels like when someone destroys your trust. He wiped his face. I'm sorry. I looked at him. You keep saying that. Because I mean it. Do you? He nodded. Then prove it. He looked up. How? End it. He was silent. End the relationship. Stop lying. Stop using people. Stop hiding behind excuses and decide whether you want to save this marriage. He stared at me for a long time. Do you still want me? That question hurt more than anything else. I looked down at my hands. I don't know. He started crying. But I want to try. I nodded. Then start by telling the truth. The next morning, Daniel called Claire. I wasn't in the room, and I didn't need to be. Later, he told me he had ended the relationship. He admitted everything. He told her he was married. He told her he had lied about the divorce. He apologized for the money he had taken from her. He didn't blame her. He didn't blame me. For the first time, he took responsibility. But the story didn't end there. Claire still had to deal with what had happened to her hair, and eventually the strange fictional reaction stopped. Her hair began growing back. It took time, but it did. Daniel kept his promise. He started counseling. He stopped hiding his phone. He became transparent about finances. He answered questions instead of getting defensive. But rebuilding trust wasn't easy. I told him that forgiveness wasn't automatic. It wasn't something he could demand because he had apologized. Trust had to be earned. Slowly. One day at a time. Months later, we were sitting on the back porch when Daniel finally asked me the question he had been avoiding. Why did you give me another chance? I looked out at the backyard. Because I didn't want my life to become nothing but revenge. He looked at me. But you did get revenge. I smiled. Maybe. But that wasn't the part that mattered. What mattered? You finally saw what your choices were doing to everyone around you. He looked down. I almost lost everything. You did lose a lot. He nodded. I know. I took a breath. And I lost something too. What? The version of you I thought I knew. He was quiet. Can I earn that back? Not the old version, I said. You can't bring that person back, but you can become someone better. He nodded slowly. I'll try. Don't try, I said. Do it. And he did. Not perfectly, but honestly. Months passed. Our marriage didn't magically become perfect. There were difficult conversations. There were days when memories came back. There were moments when I questioned whether staying was the right choice. But Daniel never asked me to forget. He never told me to move on. Instead, he accepted that trust takes time. And slowly, things changed. One morning, almost a year after the first blonde hair, I stood in our bathroom again. The same shower, the same mirror, a new shampoo bottle sitting beside the sink. I picked it up and smiled. I thought about how something so ordinary had become the center of the most painful chapter of my life. I thought about Claire. I thought about Daniel. I thought about the woman I had been that Tuesday morning, standing in the shower and holding a single strand of blonde hair. She had been scared, she had been confused, she had been furious, but she had also been strong enough to wait for the truth. I put the bottle back down. Daniel walked into the bathroom doorway. "You okay?" he asked. I looked at him. "Yeah," he smiled. "Coffee?" "Give me 5 minutes." He nodded and walked away. I looked at myself in the mirror. I realized something then. Revenge isn't always about destroying the person who hurt you. Sometimes it's about forcing the truth into the light, and then deciding what you want to do with your life afterward. Daniel had made a terrible choice. He had betrayed me. He had betrayed Claire. He had lied to everyone around him, but eventually he had to face what he had done, and I had to decide whether there was anything worth saving. I chose to give him one chance. Not because what he did was acceptable, not because I had forgotten, and certainly not because I was afraid to leave. I stayed because he finally stopped running from the consequences. The blonde hair was gone, the secret relationship was gone, the lies were gone, and the shampoo bottle. It became nothing more than a reminder of how quickly a hidden life can unravel. Sometimes the smallest clue exposes the biggest lie. Sometimes the person who thinks they're in control discovers that they were never controlling the story at all. And sometimes, after the anger fades, the most powerful revenge isn't watching someone fall. It's watching them realize what they almost lost, and giving them one final chance to become the person they should have been all along. I never found another blonde hair in that shower, and I never needed to. Because after that day, Daniel understood something he should have understood from the beginning. A marriage isn't protected by secrets. It's protected by honesty. Trust isn't maintained by hiding mistakes. It's maintained by owning them. And love isn't proven by saying, "I'm sorry." It's proven by what you do after you say it. As for me, I learned something too. I learned that betrayal can break your heart without breaking your future. I learned that anger can make you want revenge, but wisdom can make you choose something better. And I learned that sometimes the smallest thing, a single strand of hair, a bottle in a bathroom, a lie that doesn't quite make sense, can become the first crack in a wall someone thought would protect their secret forever. Daniel thought he had hidden everything. He was wrong. Because I was paying attention. And once the truth came out, he had a choice. Keep walking down the road he had chosen or turn around before it was too late. This time, he turned around, and that was the ending I never expected. Not because he deserved an easy second chance, but because after everything that happened, I realized I didn't want to spend the rest of my life looking backward. I wanted to move forward, with or without him. And this time, the choice was finally mine.